Hello, my name is Mindless Pie. This is where we open the files they never forgot. In episodes, we break down real mysteries, dark history, and unsolved cases through the evidence, the timeline, and the questions that still remain. Tonight's case is one of the most infamous in American history, the Zodiac Killer. For more than 50 years, one name has haunted investigators across California. He claimed responsibility for multiple murders, sent coded messages to newspapers, taunted police, and then vanished without ever being identified. No confirmed face, no arrest, and no final answer. Today, we are looking at the facts, the clues, and why this case remains one of America's most infamous unsolved mysteries. The story begins in Northern California. On December 20th, 1968, two teenagers, David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, were parked on a quiet road near Vallejo, California. They never made it home. Both were shot and killed in what appeared to be a sudden and brutal attack. At first, investigators did not know they were looking at the beginning of something larger. Months later, on July 4th, 1969, another young couple was attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park. Darlene Ferrin was killed. Michael Mageau survived, and his survival would become important because he was able to describe the attacker. The crimes were terrifying, but what happened next made the case even stranger. Shortly after the Blue Rock Springs attack, a man called police from a payphone. He claimed responsibility for the shooting, then connected himself to the earlier murders of David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. This was no longer just a series of attacks. Someone wanted attention, and soon he made sure the public would know his name. Weeks later, newspapers received letters from a person calling himself the Zodiac. The letters were sent to major newspapers, including the San Francisco Chronicle. Inside were details about the crimes, threats, and strange coded messages called cryptograms. The writer demanded that the letters be published. If they were not, he threatened more violence. One of the ciphers was eventually solved by a school teacher and his wife, but other messages remained unsolved for decades, and some still raise questions today. The Zodiac seemed to understand something chilling. Fear could spread faster than he ever could. The letters turned the case into something bigger than a police investigation. They made it a public obsession. Then came Lake Berryessa. On September 27th, 1969, a young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, were relaxing near the lake. A man approached them wearing an unusual hooded costume. It was unlike anything from the previous attacks. He carried a weapon, spoke to them, and then attacked. Brian Hartnell survived. Cecilia Shepard later died from her injuries. Before leaving, the attacker wrote a message on the couple's car door, listing dates of previous attacks. It was another sign that the same person wanted credit. He was not just committing crimes, he was building a symbol. Less than a month later, the case moved into San Francisco. On October 11th, 1969, taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger. Stein was later shot and killed in the Presidio Heights neighborhood. Witnesses saw a man leaving the scene, giving investigators one of their most important descriptions. A composite sketch was created and released to the public. For a moment, it seemed like police might finally be closing in, but the suspect disappeared into the night. The Zodiac continued sending letters. Some included threats, some mocked police, some seemed designed only to confuse people. He claimed more victims than investigators could confirm, and that became one of the hardest parts of the case. What was true, what was a lie, and what was meant only to keep people afraid. Over the decades, investigators examined many suspects. Some seemed promising, some had strange connections, some matched parts of the description, but none were ever conclusively proven to be the Zodiac Killer. Handwriting analysis was studied, fingerprints were compared, DNA testing was attempted, old evidence was reviewed again and again. Still, no final answer came. Part of what makes the Zodiac case so haunting is that it sits between evidence and mystery. There are letters, ciphers, survivor descriptions, witness reports, a famous sketch, and crime scenes connected across time and place. And yet, after all of that, the person behind the name remains unknown. More than half a century later, the Zodiac Killer's identity is still debated. Books have been written, documentaries have been made, amateur investigators have spent years chasing theories. Police departments have reopened old leads. Technology has changed, forensics have improved, but the question remains, who was the Zodiac? Maybe the answer is hidden in the letters. Maybe it is buried in an overlooked report. Maybe someone knew the truth and never came forward. Or maybe the killer died. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of Mindless Pie. If you want more real mysteries, dark history, and unsolved cases, make sure to subscribe and come back for the next file.